He's three law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
Chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what, but it's becoming clearer. It's becoming clearer and clearer, but...
To dive into this story, we can't tiptoe. We have to step straight into the chaos of one of hip-hop's greatest enigmas. Charleston White, known for speaking without filters, doesn't just stir the pot. He drops an explosive charge into the already volatile memory of the 1990s rap wars. His words aren't framed as rumor or hazy speculation. Instead, he paints a stark picture, naming Diddy, the face of Bad Boy, as the man who allegedly warned Tupac Shakur that crossing him could mean death. This wasn't casual trash talk or the kind of ego-driven sparring common in the industry. White describes it as a direct, unapologetic threat, a moment where competitive bravado morphed into something life-threatening. With that, the East Coast-West Coast feud ceased to be just a lyrical contest. It became a battlefield. Imagine it, two cultural giants locked in a conflict so raw and personal that its echoes would outlive them both. And now, nearly 30 years later, White suggests that behind the glitz and velvet ropes stood a power player whose influence may have fanned the flames of one of music's most infamous rivalries.
Tupac played himself, homie. We saw him go from East Coast to West Coast. We saw him go from backup dancer to you think y'all the mob, we the f***ing mob.
The weight of Tupac Shakur's unsolved death can never be overstated. At just 25, in the full blaze of his artistry, his voice was silenced. That night in Las Vegas, riding passenger in a BMW, the city's neon burning above him, fresh off a clash with death row's fiercest adversaries, was more than another headline of violence. It was the moment the music faltered, and the mystery took root. Each rumor, each scrap of evidence, became another shadow stretching across the story. Now Charleston White's claims push that darkness deeper. His words don't just reopen old wounds, they force us to re-examine the very foundation of what happened on that September night. Could this new accusation shift the lens on a tragedy that has haunted hip-hop for nearly 3 decades?
Keisha, I'm not going to live, past a certain time, or, I know I'm going to get shot up. He knew that. That was, the one thing that he...
Now the temperature rises. Charleston White doesn't just toss blame. He rips the veil off what he claims was the true engine behind Diddy's power. Not platinum plaques, not street respect, not even the bad boy empire itself. According to White, it was the FBI. He insists the feds had evidence tying Diddy to Shakur's murder from the start. But instead of acting, they pocketed it, turning leverage into control. In White's telling, Diddy wasn't treated like a suspect. He was recruited as an informant. A tool. A pawn in a much bigger game. This isn't pitched as your typical celebrity cover-up. White paints the Bureau as puppeteers, pulling strings behind the scenes of hip-hop's golden age. Diddy, he claims, was their inside man, allowed to ascend, to survive scandals, to outlast rivals, because he played by their rules. The picture is stark, the most powerful mogul in rap history recast not as untouchable, but as tethered, his every triumph shadowed by the quiet hand of federal influence. To White, the headlines about Diddy's brushes with the law were never the real story. The real story was the leash no one could see.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate, and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he has to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70, that's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway.
The tension tightens even further. If Diddy truly served as a cornerstone in the FBI's long game, could he ever really be toppled? Charleston White, never one to temper his warnings, douses the fire with fuel. Even now, while Diddy sits behind bars, his name splashed across headlines for trafficking and racketeering, White insists the outcome isn't guaranteed, and his telling, the same system that once leaned on Diddy's influence could just as easily pull strings to secure his escape. Years of service to federal agendas, White suggests, may have bought him a kind of protection money can't match. And if that protection still holds, if he slips free yet again, what does that reveal about the justice system we've been told to trust?
Incentive just revenge, or was the incentive for that supposed money that...
Now the rumors carry names, faces, and painful memories. Tupac Shakur, Tupac's brother, has been one of the most vocal skeptics of Diddy's innocence. With the weariness of someone who has carried a family tragedy for nearly 30 years, he recalls how Diddy once called him directly to deny any role in Tupac's death. But Mopreme never fully accepted it. Each new revelation, he says, chips away at those denials, making them sound thinner with time. In his own words to Piers Morgan, "My opinion is that I don't believe it was a 100% honest statement." Diplomatic on the surface, but underneath it, a demand for the case to finally be reopened. It's the stuff of a Netflix crime saga, but this isn't scripted. The investigation itself has dragged on for decades without closure. Only last year, a break came when Dwayne "Kef D" Davis was arrested and charged for his role in the Las Vegas shooting. But that development only deepened the intrigue. Kef D has repeatedly named Diddy as the man who put a multi-million-dollar bounty on both Tupac and Suge Knight. And this isn't just one man's testimony. Those allegations surface again in undercover police tapes, court filings, and witness accounts, threads that, stitched together, suggest the outlines of a conspiracy larger than anyone first admitted. For the first time, the pieces seem to be aligning, pulling a long unsolved murder back into the spotlight with new urgency.
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac.
And still, Diddy seems to glide just out of reach. He's never been charged in Tupac Shakur's killing, never officially named a suspect, while investigators in Las Vegas and Los Angeles have swung their spotlight at everyone from Suge Knight to shadowy gang figures. Yet whenever the trail curves back toward Diddy, the signal inexplicably cuts out. So when Charleston White says the FBI had its hooks in Bad Boy's boss all along, the allegation lands with far more weight than it might have once. Think about it. For years Diddy weathered scandals that would have sunk almost anyone else. His rise, his apparent Teflon luck, the way revelations that should have ended him simply evaporated. What if that pattern wasn't natural at all, but engineered? White suggests a darker explanation. Federal handlers cultivated and protected a single powerful conduit into hip-hop so they could steer the chaos they'd been watching, or shaping, from the shadows. If the Bureau treated Diddy as an asset rather than a suspect, it would help explain why prosecution stalled at the 11th hour. Even today, as federal prosecutors press racketeering, trafficking, and conspiracy counts, there's a persistent sense that an invisible force keeps him insulated from full reckoning. That's where the idea of leverage, even blackmail, creeps in. Federal leverage could buy silence, cooperation, and, critics argue, impunity. The intrigue only thickens on the personal side. Tupac Shakur and the family haven't let the matter rest. With Diddy's latest legal battles splashed across the headlines, they've hired celebrity attorney Alec Spiro, the same legal figure credited with getting Alec Baldwin off the hook and who now represents New York's embattled mayor, to go digging. Spiro's brief is simple and brutal: probe Diddy's possible links to Tupac's murder, hunt for connections authorities missed, and finally answer whether Diddy was a player in that ultimate betrayal, and, if so, why the system seemed so determined to let him walk. The waters remain as murky as ever. For every bold accusation, there's a counterweight of denials, missing pieces, and stories that refuse to align. Kef D swears Diddy put a multi-million-dollar bounty on Tupac and Suge Knight, recalling how the offer made his crew believe, "Damn, we can get paid now." Court filings reveal Diddy's name surfacing 47 times in one sealed interview, tied to cash exchanges, secret meetings, and motives straight out of a Hollywood thriller. Diddy, of course, dismisses it all as fantasy, ridiculous, and pure fiction. Yet the questions won't fade. If his hands are clean, why has the case never reached closure? Why do whispers in the industry still circle his name like vultures? And why do so many witnesses suddenly fall silent, vanish, or change their stories? It leaves us with darker possibilities. Could the FBI have used Diddy as a pawn to dismantle death row, shielding bigger players while guiding the rap game's balance of power? Was the East Coast surge in the late 90s less about music and more about deals made in backrooms? And now, as Diddy fights for his own survival in a New York courtroom, charged with trafficking, racketeering, and running what prosecutors describe as an empire of exploitation, the parallels grow sharper. The man once painted as untouchable faces testimony that paints him not just as a shrewd mogul, but as someone far more dangerous. Still, Charleston White warns, the invisible protection that carried Diddy for decades could rise again. Witnesses vanish, cases stall, outcomes bend. And through it all, the echo of that night in Las Vegas, Tupac's final ride, reverberates in every new headline, a reminder that the mystery has never truly been laid to rest. Tupac Shakur, the rebel poet, cut down in a storm of bullets after a Mike Tyson fight. A violent ending that shook the world of music and left a case still unsolved. Decades later, the grief, the rage, and the mystery still circle a man who has been cast as both predator and prey, puppet and puppet master. As we sift through court files, whispered confessions, family doubts, and the silence of federal agencies, one question lingers. How much of Diddy's empire was built on secrets never meant to surface? Could the very path of 90s hip-hop have been less about talent, loyalty, and radio dominance, and more about a shadow war? A war where the FBI played the long game, using Diddy to contain rivals, tilt power, and quietly maintain control. Tupac Shakur, still cautious with his words, admits his doubts without naming names. As he told Piers Morgan, the truth has to come out eventually. His patience carries the weight of someone who's been waiting a lifetime for clarity. Meanwhile, whispers spread in every direction. Allegations about Diddy's ties to Jay-Z, theories of secret assignments, and court filings that leak like teasers for a dark HBO drama. Prosecutors chase vanished witnesses. Survivors sign binding NDAs. Headlines scream of trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, while the specter of a life sentence hangs over a mogul once thought untouchable. And yet, the feeling persists that the real story remains hidden, buried in FBI vaults, murmured in backrooms, protected by forces too powerful to confront. Which leaves us with the most dangerous question of all. Did Diddy strike a bargain that reshaped not only music, but justice itself? Was Tupac's unsolved murder left unsolved by design, to shield interests larger than any one man? If the answers ever surface, will they finally close the book on hip-hop's greatest mystery? Or will they only prove that the truth was never meant to be found? Every revelation seems to set the stage for another cycle of secrets, cover-ups, and betrayals. Moves that could topple legends all over again. And while the world fixates on Diddy's collapse, there's another towering figure looming in the background. Suge Knight. The man whose presence once made the entire industry shudder has never truly faded, even behind prison walls. For years, whispers suggested that Knight was biding his time, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Old enemies rarely rest, and in the death row playbook, vengeance never comes with an expiration date. Now insiders claim Knight's quiet cooperation with investigators, whether born from spite or survival, may have loosened the very evidence threatening to dismantle Diddy's empire. Was this his last, calculated move? A checkmate designed to avenge not only Tupac, but the destruction of the empire he built brick by bloody brick. Those close to Knight insist he always saw Diddy's fortune as the product of betrayal, and believed the bill would one day come due. This is no ordinary celebrity feud. In this world, power doesn't just shift, it rewrites the rules. Knight's reach has always extended beyond the studio, and now, with both moguls fighting for their legacies from opposite sides of prison walls, the questions cut deeper. How much of this is personal? How much is business? And when Knight decided to spill his secrets, was he simply settling scores, or ensuring that history would remember him not as a casualty, but as the real kingpin who refused to be erased? What if every new leak, indictment, and sworn statement isn't just news but another chess move in a conflict that began the night Tupac fell, and won't end until somebody's throne is dust? Some people will scoff, call the idea insane. Still, when you pry beneath the headlines, a larger battlefield emerges. Throughout the 90s, the spotlight of hip-hop often felt like a glare designed to distract. Behind it, insiders say, a covert war played out. Label chiefs, street bosses, federal agents, and artists all tugging at the future of black music and business. The allegation is that the FBI didn't merely investigate crime, it tried to steer culture itself, flipping artists into informants, weaponizing scandals, and manipulating loyalties to reshape who held power on the streets and on the charts. That theory reframes Tupac's murder. Was it a tragic outcome of a feud gone too far, or a deliberate turning point in a campaign to cripple the West Coast, neutralize death row, and rewrite the era's power map? Reporters point to patterns that feel too convenient: arrests timed to advantage one side, key witnesses who disappear, and an omnipresent federal presence always at the edge of the frame. And then there's the charge that ties many threads together: Charleston White's claim that Diddy occupied the intersection of those two worlds, sometimes a broker, sometimes a beneficiary, sometimes an asset. Questions about Diddy's ties to other major players, rumors that Jay-Z and Puff were assigned roles in this shadow game, pop up whenever a document leaks or a jailed figure starts to talk. Whether you believe those whispers or not, each new revelation makes the tapestry more intricate and the stakes higher. If even a fraction of these stories hold water, Tupac's death becomes more than a cultural wound. It's a pivot point, engineered or exploited by forces far beyond the music business's glitzy storefronts. Every fresh filing, every recantation, every vanished witness feels like another stitch pulled from a long-buried design, and each one asks the same hard question. Who really wrote hip-hop's history, and at what cost? A hustler for the feds. A king among moguls. A man who survived every scandal, every shot aimed his way. The most explosive theory. That the FBI didn't just use Diddy, they weaponized his feud with Suge, his rivalry with Shakur, and his rise through the 90s as tools to pacify the streets, keeping the true bosses hidden and untouchable. If Charleston White's allegations carry even a shred of truth, then Tupac's final ride wasn't simply the end of a feud. It was the pivot point in a shadow war for the soul of hip-hop. Now, the stakes are higher than ever. Diddy's trial dragging his empire into the light, Suge Knight still flexing influence from a prison cell, and families who've carried grief for decades watching the pieces shift again. Insiders warn this is just the beginning. More evidence could surface. More witnesses might flip. And if even a sliver of White's story proves real, the fallout could scorch legends far beyond Bad Boy or Death Row. Oh, where does that leave us? With more questions than answers. Was this all pride and ego between two men, or the ultimate power play orchestrated by unseen hands? Did Diddy ever truly run the show, or was he just another pawn in a much older, more dangerous game? And after nearly 30 years, can real justice even be found, or will hip-hop's greatest tragedy remain buried beneath secrets, cover-ups, and heartbreak? Now before you scroll away, we want to hear from you. Who do you believe was really behind Shakur's end? Do you think Diddy will ever face the full truth? Could the next court session finally break this case wide open? Drop your boldest theories and deepest suspicions in the comments. Let's see who's willing to say what the industry won't.